here with Steve Ertelt of LifeNews.com, and we're so happy that you can join us for our continued CPAC 2011 coverage. First off, I know that one of the big issues, I guess, on the pro-life front has been obviously the repeal of Obamacare and how that's going in court. So do you have any of the latest news that you can update us on that regard?
Well, obviously the House has passed a repeal bill. The Senate, it came up short. Really the problem is we've got Republicans united in favor of repealing the bill, which does include a lot of loopholes that would allow abortion funding and also rationing concerns as well for pro-life groups. And the problem now is just finding some Democrats to come on board. You've got some people like Joe Manchin in the Senate that have campaigned as though I'm a conservative Democrat, I'm open to this. It didn't side with us so far, so it's been a tough going because really we just have Republicans on board right now.
Now, one thing I'm fascinated about your new site is that you guys continually break pro-life news, and I'm not sure how big your staff is. It seems like I'm like, you must not sleep. You must not sleep or eat. So explain to me a little bit about how that works, how you kind of started out with the site and kind of how it grew to be what it is today.
Well, LifeNews.com used to be a clipping service where we'd pass along news, information and whatnot from mainstream media sources, basically. And there's so much bias and misinformation in the mainstream media. We really wanted to get the job done right. So LifeNews.com is really an all-original news service that presents pro-life news from a pro-life perspective. We work quickly with pro-life groups. That's why we're able to break a lot of news stories. We're working really on the ground floor with them as they're working in Congress, state legislatures across the country, campaigns, or what have you. So we're just able to work closely with them and really get the information done right. Our focus is really just making sure it's accurate, making sure that the pro-life perspective is presented. You watch the mainstream news, the cable networks, even, and obviously the main networks, ABC, NBC, and whatnot. You really just don't get a pro-life presentation a lot of times. It's always stacked against us. So we really want to let pro-life groups get the word out there, and our news stories give them the vehicle to do that.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, I know that I go to you guys for all of the life issues first. I'm interested in your take now, turning back to the political side of things, on Chris Christie in New Jersey, because here's someone who hasn't made pro-life issues necessarily his banner or his go-to thing, and yet he's actually getting things done, like saying, hey, wait, we're not going to fund Planned Parenthood. So I'm interested to know if you think what you think of his approach, where he's not really very vocal about it, and if you're okay with that, and just kind of how you see that situation playing out, and if you think other politicians will follow that model in the future.
Well, you have to understand the politics of the Northeast, as I'm sure you do. It's liberal country. It's not flyover country where everybody really appreciates the pro-life perspective. It's very tough to be a pro-lifer in some of those states. Most of them don't send many pro-life people to Congress, for example. So he really has an uphill battle there in New Jersey in terms of fighting against what really is kind of the pro-abortion establishment. But really, if you look at his record and you look at his rhetoric, Chris Christie has been very pro-life. As you mentioned, the Planned Parenthood funding, he vetoed not once but twice a bill that would fund what really is the nation's biggest abortion business. So that really was something pro-life people received very well. His rhetoric has also been very pro-life. He appeared at a rally last month, obviously marking the grim anniversary of Roe versus Wade. He had appeared at a rally and said, hey, I'm pro-life. Here's how I arrived at that conclusion. I saw ultrasounds. I became a father. Much like many Americans nowadays are pro-life because of the technology, seeing the unborn child really for the first time in the womb. So he's progressed, as many Americans has, moving from maybe a mushy middle to really a solidly pro-life position. Most pro-life people that I know really appreciate what he's done so far. Obviously, he's just new in the position. He has many years to really build a track record. But thus far, he's done really well in terms of pro-life concerns.
Did you have any inkling how well he was going to do before he was elected? Because I think
I really did, and I tell you why. Chris Smith, who of course is the pro-life icon in Congress, he's been the spear carrier for many, many years, just a great leader on pro-life issues. He assured a lot of Republican voters and voters in New Jersey, Chris Christie's a pro-life guy, he's somebody that I trust. And so when Chris Smith gets on board with somebody, you know that person's going to be pro-life. He is a non-compromising champion on the abortion issue and has been for decades. So his sign-off on Chris Christie was something a lot of people took to heart.
Final two questions. First of all, I know that with the live-action videos that came out about all of the undercover work that they did and some of the not-so-pleasant activities maybe that Planned Parenthood employees were kind of facilitating or, kind of turning a blind eye to.
Exactly.
Do you see anything starting to move? I know there have been a couple of legislative things. Do you see any progress being made now that Republicans have control of the House? Do you think they will actually be able to get something passed? Is it something that can be passed in the Senate?
Mike Pence has the bill that's the defund Planned Parenthood bill. It essentially says when it comes to Title X funding, the family planning funding that Planned Parenthood gets, and they get $363 million from Congress every time. That bill really is going to get some traction, and I think in large part because of these videos. The Obamacare issue is a real big help for moving things in the pro-life direction on funding issues, and that really, I think, will be the straw that broke the camel's back. When people see Planned Parenthood as not this great business that is pro-woman and takes care of women in terms of their medical health, that it exploits women, and really this most ghastly way of aiding and abetting sexual traffickers who come to them and say, here's what we're doing, and they don't cast any aversions to that at all. They're not worried about it at all. They quickly say, hey, how can we help you? How can we get abortions for these underage girls? They're understood that the girls are brought in from out of country. How can we get them STD testing? And in the case of New Jersey, how can we get them back on the street so they can be victimized by the sex trade again?
Exactly.
So this really has pushed the envelope further to say, hey, we've got to get the federal government out of the Planned Parenthood business. I believe Mike Pence, for the first time, may get that bill out of the House. Obviously, the Senate's another question, but you've got to continue to move in the right direction. The ball's moving down the field, and this is going to be a great first victory. Maybe after 2012, a pro-life president, a pro-life Senate, perhaps, we can really move that bill forward and make it law.
I can't come fast enough. Okay, final question for you is, Planned Parenthood, we've seen a couple different trends here. One example has been the trend towards telemed abortions.
Sure.
I know that they were starting with that. Where do you see them going? Even if it's from procedures to just their PR spin, what do you think is going to be their next step and their next move, and what should we be prepared, those of us who are pro-life, to?
Really more of the same, and more of the same is really trying to redefine Planned Parenthood as an entity. We obviously want to show the public what they really are, which is an abortion business. That's their main business. They are really trying to get away from that. They want to be seen as legitimate medical centers. They want to be seen as pushing women's health care, reproductive health care, helping the poor, helping those, especially with the health care debate, that don't have insurance. They really want to be seen as the main primary care provider for people who don't have health insurance. And that's how they're trying to define themselves. And of course, we know when it comes to pregnant women, you look at their own figures every year, 95% of women who are pregnant who go to Planned Parenthood, all they get is an abortion. There's no push for adoption. There's no push for pregnancy help, for legitimate care that women need when they're pregnant, medical referrals and insurance help and this sort of thing. Abortion is really what's pushed. So we really just need to continue to define Planned Parenthood as an abortion business, because that's what it is. It's a billion-dollar entity. It's considered a nonprofit under IRS law. They bring in a lot of money, $1 billion to governmental funding, obviously the 360 some odd million that they bring in a year. So we really just need to continue to define them as what they are, a place that pushes abortion, abortion's their agenda, and without any compromise. Stopping taxpayer funding of abortion, parental notification, any of these kinds of things, they say no. Absolutely no to. So it's pro-abortion, it's not in compromise, it's on your tax dollar, and frankly for medical professionals, they want you to have to be involved in that, to make a referral, to be involved in it. So really abortion is their agenda, abortion's their business.
Well, thank you so much, I appreciate that, and I'm sure that our people who are watching appreciate that as well. So now you know.
Absolutely.
Exactly, you know to be prepared. Thank you so much for joining us.
We appreciate it. Thanks for having me.